Ever been watching football and heard the commentator say this?
Good hold-up play.
If you've played organized football, you've heard this term hold-up play. But what does it mean? I started watching organized football in the 2010s, and the person I would associate most with hold-up play from that time is Olivier Giroud. He explained this part of his play style in an interview, saying the following: "I'm the type of player who likes to keep the ball, a bit of an old-school player, a tall player with the ability to help the team by serving as a focal point to do 1-2s, whether it's to lay it off for a teammate or to keep possession high up the pitch." He then explained that in England, this is referred to as the hold-up player. So let's dive into that explanation. Welcome back to SincereFC, and today's video is about the importance of hold-up play and why we should count it in football statistics. So first, what is hold-up play? Hold-up play can look different depending on where it happens on the pitch and the situation of the match. This diagram example, courtesy of Newman, actually uses footage from Giroud's time at Chelsea. The key thing to note is everyone's body position. You can see Giroud is facing away from goal. He's holding off the defender to protect the ball, and he's hoping he can get it to Mason Mount, who's running beyond him through on goal. While Giroud has the ball, Chelsea's attack is basically held up. That's what gives it the name. But there are lots of times when the striker engages the center back without actually holding them. Here, Kolo Muani separates himself from the defender before receiving a pass with his back to the goal. You can see the other Juventus players moving around him to get themselves into a better position. Here we can see Lautaro Martinez, who's only 5'9", holding off the defender before laying it off to an inter-midfielder. In this clip, Jared Bowen holds onto the ball for a lot longer than we saw in the ones before. But the goal is the same: protect the ball, wait for your teammates to get up the field, and then give it up so you can get into a goal-scoring position. The hold-up player doesn't have to be touching the center back, but he should be actively working to keep hold of the ball. So what's not hold-up play? If you're not facing away from goal and actively working to keep hold of the ball, that means you can drive towards the goal when you receive it. That's called a progressive pass and a progressive reception. You see dozens of these every match. Now let's be clear, progressive receptions and hold-up play are basically exclusive. If it's one, it's not the other, and vice versa. Now, in the modern, fast-paced football game, why do players do hold-up play? If your forward isn't particularly quick, it's hard to pass it to them over the top of the defenders. But if they come to hold the ball up and engage the center backs, that should create space for the wingers and the midfielders to run beyond them. There's also the element of keeping possession. In the earlier clip we saw of West Ham, Arsenal had been pressing West Ham into their own half of the pitch. Once Bowen holds it up and keeps possession, his West Ham teammates can advance up the field and they can get possession in Arsenal's defensive half. So, why does this matter? This seems like an innocuous type of pass. Why would someone make a video explaining why we need to count it? To understand the value of hold-up play, we need to think about something called pitch control. Pitch control tells you which team is controlling what areas of the pitch based on where each team's players are. The elite teams who dominate possession try to press their opponents into a small area of the pitch. When one of the forwards successfully holds up the ball, they take one of the defenders away from the defensive shape. This opens up space where the defender has just vacated. Trying to build up through an opposition press is both risky and difficult, so strikers and midfielders use this technique to try and escape the opposition press. Your team having good hold-up players essentially determines whether you can build up through the middle while the opposition is in their shape. If you can't, you have to either score on the counter, score with a set piece, or try and build up via the wings. Like anything, there's a risk-reward to trying hold-up play. If you try and hold it up in midfield and you lose the ball, that's a high turnover for the opposition. High turnovers are how most elite teams prefer to create their chances. The opposition defense is running backwards, and your attackers are running forwards into the space. The closer to your own goal you turn it over, the worse it is. So there's a big risk and reward for hold-up play. If you succeed, you go up against the opposition's defense running backwards. That's great. But if you fail, that's a high turnover, and that's really bad. So, as a Premier League fan, you might say, I watch a lot of Premier League games and I don't see this very often. Why is that? When you hold up the ball stops. If you lose it, you give the opposition all the momentum because they're running towards your goal and your teammates, who were running forward, now have to sprint back. These are the situations that all Premier League managers try their hardest to avoid. Teams want to minimize the risk of conceding while maximizing their chance to score. In many cases, teams prefer to play a direct ball over the top, or into the channel, where a striker or winger can run onto it. If you lose it here, the risk is lower. The ball is farther from your goal, and you don't have to scramble to get back into position. As a general rule, the faster the game is going from end to end, the less likely you are to see the ball get held up in midfield. And the Premier League is by far the fastest league. If you watch one of the other top 5 leagues, you'll see the ball progress slower in midfield, and you'll probably also see more hold-up play. You'll definitely see more hold-up play if you watch retro Premier League. Back in the day, almost every team played a direct style. Hold-up play was one of the most effective ways to build up an attack, and if you were a top-level striker, you had to have some element of hold-up play in your game. It wouldn't have made as much sense to measure this back then, because everyone was doing it. These days, the game's faster, and a lot of teams try to run in behind. But if you play an opposition that sits deep, it's quite difficult to do that. It's better to try and create chances by playing off of the forwards who are holding the ball up. But it's so out of style today that many of the top forwards don't even have the instincts to do it. So it's not as though all of the Premier League forwards today are bad at hold-up play. Most of them don't actually attempt it. Which brings me to a story about the Euro 2024 final. If you're 30 years old or younger, one of the strikers you've seen throughout this generation of football is Alvaro Morata. What's the story with him? He's been on several elite teams throughout his career, despite never having a particularly good goal-scoring record. Why is that? One reason is his exceptional hold-up play. Although he can't dribble like Ronaldo or bend it like Beckham, Morata has a bag of moves when he's trying to hold off a defender and keep the ball. He knows how to be physical at times, can control the ball with the head, chest, and feet, and he's very good at this pass around the corner, which is one of the most useful skills in hold-up play as a forward. Morata gave a masterclass in hold-up play during this match. Several times he dropped into midfield to connect the defense and attack, and in doing so, he creates space for Nico Williams and Lamine Yamal, which is how Spain created most of their chances in this game. The context of this match is important. It's July 9th, the final of a tournament in the summer, and both teams are extremely tired from a long season. The pace of the game is undoubtedly slower, and Morata's hold-up play allowed Spain's players to get forward in unison at the right speed. Morata also gave Spain what commentators sometimes call an out ball, to go direct and evade the press from England, like we saw earlier in the video. Then, on 70 minutes, Spain's manager made a change. He took off Morata and replaced him with Mikel Oyarzabal, who plays as an attacking midfielder for Real Sociedad. While making this video, I went and watched some clips of Sociedad. Oyarzabal doesn't play with his back to goal. It's not that he's bad at hold-up play, he doesn't try to do it. Here, we could see Oyarzabal on the last line of England's defense with Williams and Yamal. Asking Oyarzabal to hold the ball up would be like asking a kickboxer to start punching someone. It's not their style. But this match no longer required hold-up play. England's press was tired, and Spain began to fashion chances by passing it directly through the lines. For this context, Oyarzabal is better suited to play striker. He's better with his first touch, and he's a more technically gifted footballer. With 5 minutes to go, Oyarzabal justified the selection, and he scored the tournament-winning goal. Now that we understand what hold-up play is and why it's important, what do? My goal is to convince you, the viewer, that we should be counting hold-up play in the elite European leagues. We can do this now using available tracking data, and here's how. If you know the X and Y coordinates of a player on the field from moment to moment, you can use those to figure out which way they were running, and therefore which way they were facing. If a player is facing away from goal as they receive the ball, and there's a defender between them and the goal in close proximity, that's a hold-up. If you can count every time that this is attempted, you can differentiate the successes from the failures when the defender pokes the ball away from the attacker. Once you count successes and failures, you can produce a rate statistic. Say a player tries this 14 times and succeeds 5. Over the course of a game and a season, which players succeed at the highest rate when they're asked to hold off a defender and protect the ball? Suppose you're a manager for a team that doesn't get much possession of the ball. You know that in order to launch counterattacks, you may have to hold the ball up. Seeing these statistics might inform your selection of which players you try to sign. There's another part of hold-up play worth counting as well. I call this the wall. When a player is facing away from goal, and they get the ball passed to them, and they do a first-time pass back in the direction that the ball came from. It's like playing indoor football and kicking a pass off the wall to yourself. We want to count how many times you try this and how many times you succeed, because it's another useful skill to have to break an opposition press. Let's be clear about something. It's not that if you don't hold the ball up, you're not a good player. Lionel Messi didn't do it all that much. But this is a useful tool when the pace of the game isn't as quick. If your team isn't playing well, you can still count on your forwards to keep attacks going if you hit it to them upfield and they hold it up. And because it's so uncommon now, it would benefit everyone if we understood who did it well. Otherwise, players like Alvaro Morata go overlooked. Take a legend from the past. Even though Didier Drogba is a Premier League legend, people look back at his stats and think that he wasn't that good because he didn't score 25 goals a season. What they don't realize is that he was a master of hold-up play, and he linked everything together for that Chelsea team. Creating these stats will help do these players justice. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe. Leave a comment with what other parts of the game you'd like to see covered, and I hope to see you again on SincereFC very soon.